And action! Hey friends, I'm back again doing another video. I just finished another book. This one's called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. My favorite book right now, right? I know I say that every time, but every time it's true. This is my most favorite book until I read the next one, I'm sure. But The War of Art, break through the blocks and win your inner creative battles. Creative work is a gift to the world and every being in it. Don't cheat us of your contribution. Give us what you've got. That's a quote from the book, right? I'm reading the back of the book real quick to give you an idea of what the book's about. Do you dream about writing the great American novel? Regret not finishing your paintings, poems, or screenplays? Want to start a business or charity? Wish you could start dieting or exercising today? Hope to run a marathon someday? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you need to read The War of Art. In this powerful, straight-from-the-hip examination of the internal obstacles to success, best-selling author Steven Pressfield shows readers how to identify, defeat, and unlock the inner barriers to creativity. The War of Art is an inspirational, funny, well-aimed kick in the pants guaranteed to galvanize every would-be artist, visionary, or entrepreneur. And then it's got some quotes here. Or not quotes, some testimonials from the book. I can't even describe how I can tell. I'll tell you this real quick. First of all, this book first came into my awareness from a Randy Gage blog post that he did for this book, which is, I'm reading this one. So I got 3 books by Steven Pressfield that I'm reading. The War of Art, which I just finished. Turning Pro, which I'm going to start tonight. And then as soon as I'm done with Turning Pro, I'm going to read this one, which is called Do the Work. But I first became aware of Steven Pressfield at all, and into these works, with a blog post that Randy Gage did for Do the Work. And I'm going to link that blog post into this description down here, because it's a really good blog post. So he talks about this book and why it's awesome and why you should read it. And I haven't read this one yet, so I can't tell you why you should read it. Although I can tell you I'm already really excited to read it. Because I read this one, and something that he says a lot in this book, I'm holding it upside down, make a horrible Vanna White, don't I? One of the things that he says in this book, though, is there's a common theme. He talks about do the work. Sit down, go to your office, sit in front of your typewriter if you're a writer, get in front of your blank canvas if you're a painter, whatever it is, sit down and do the work, you know? Anyway, go to that link, though, read that blog post, and I'll just a disclaimer, he drops the F-bomb in that blog post. But if you look down in the conversation in the comments under that blog post, there was a lot of back and forth conversation, which I was a part of, on the use of the F-bomb in that. So if you're interested in my take on using choice language, whether or not we should or shouldn't, and when it's appropriate to and when it's not appropriate to, I was a big part of that conversation, that back and forth in the comments there. So check that out. What was I getting at? Oh, and then how I became aware of this. I'll put another link to something else in the comments for a YouTube video. There's a podcast called The Joe Rogan Experience, and Steven Pressfield was recently, a little while back now, was on The Joe Rogan Experience, and I listened to that podcast, and that was fantastic. It was a really good conversation where they talk about the War of Art, they talk about Turning Pro, which is where I first heard about this one, and they talk about Do the Work. And you're listening to, a couple of real producers, people who don't just dream about it, they do about it, and they were raving about these books as well, and how it helped them, kind of get over some obstacles and stuff like that. So there's a good conversation there if you're interested in that. I'm going to put the YouTube link to that podcast episode in the description box, so that's worth checking out. Anyway, as for the book itself, one of the things I really liked about this book was that in the beginning of the book, he really personifies resistance, as if it's this person that's outside of you, that's out to get you, right? To squander your goals and dreams and to keep you procrastinating and going nowhere fast. But some of my notes here, I took notes. I mean, I took pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of notes. And we're not going to go over all these. I'm just going to give you a glimpse of what's in the book. So anyway, let's go over a couple things here, though. He talks about how resistance is the enemy within. He personifies it as this person that's outside of you trying to get you. But the reality of it is resistance is the enemy within. It's your own thoughts and beliefs that is bringing you to procrastinate. Anyway, a rule of thumb that he's got in this book that he says several times in a few different ways, but he says the same thing. And the one I have in front of me right now is, he says, the more important a call or action is to our soul's evolution, the more resistance we feel towards pursuing it. And now that's interesting. And I put on a picture of one of these pages, and I don't know which one it is in front of me at the moment, of a page where he talks about resistance and love. He talks about how the more... I wish I had that page in front of me right now. Oh, here it is. Wow, that was pretty cool. I'm wishing you will receive. I just thumbed the book, and that page came out. But page 42, he talks about resistance and love. It says, the more resistance you experience, the more important your unmanifested art, project, or enterprise is to you. And the more gratification you will feel when you finally do it. You know, he talks about here, procrastination is the most common manifestation of resistance because it's the easiest to rationalize. We don't tell ourselves, I'm never going to write my symphony. Instead, we say, I'm going to write my symphony. I'm just going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to build my business. I'm just going to do it tomorrow, right? He talks about here, he said it somewhere, I had it, said rationalization is resistance's right-hand man, you know? But anyway, the rule of thumb that I was going to tell about you earlier, I did, I shared that. Yeah, the more important it is, the more important it is to us, the more resistance that we'll feel towards it. And a lot of it talks about the reason why is it's out of fear. Basically, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. And fear of what? Well, that depends, and he's got a lot of different ideas on that, but it really could be the fear of success. And that one just doesn't even make sense, but yet it's a real thing, man. It's a real thing. The more scared we are of a work or calling, the more sure we can be that we have to do it. So that makes me think of Tony Robbins. He says, if we can't, then we must. Rationalization, I mentioned how it's resistance's right-hand man. Its job is to keep us from feeling the shame we would feel if we truly faced what cowards we are for not doing our work. It's one thing to lie to ourselves. It's another thing to believe it. Rationalization is resistance's spin doctor. Instead of showing us our fear, which might shame us and impel us to do our work, resistance presents us with a series of plausible, rational justifications for why we shouldn't do our work. So anyway, that's a glimpse of Turning Pro. Not Turning Pro, excuse me, that's my next book. That's a glimpse of The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. And I really just can't, the subtitle says it all. Break through the blocks and win your inner creative battles. And then it sounds misleading, the subtitle. And I'm glad he said something about, do you dream about a great novel, paintings and all this. But one of them was, do you want to start your own business or charity? And I'm glad he had that in there, at least there, because this book seems like it's written by an author, right? He writes novels and stuff. And he's talking to the artist, the painter, the symphony or, creator, whatever, all this kind of stuff. But, and he mentions starting a diet or whatever. This isn't just for people who identify themselves as artists. This is a book, if you have any kind of goal, dream, or aspiration that you want to move towards, that is important to you, but for some reason you just can't figure out why you're not moving towards it, take a look at this book, The War of Art. I mean, it's a simple, easy read. It's not that, 165 pages. It's not a very, very thick, intimidating book. You can read it in a matter of a couple of days. Even a slow-paced reader like myself, an undeveloped reader, such as myself, I read it in 10 days, and I didn't touch it every day for 10 days. I started it on the 15th of this month, and I finished it today on the 25th. So it took me 10 days to read it, but it didn't take me 10 days of reading to read it. You know what I'm saying? It's not that intimidating of a book. But anyway, fantastic book. I highly recommend it. I am on to my second Steven Pressfield book, Turning Pro, before I get to my third Steven Pressfield book, Do the Work. And I'm really excited for these. I've rambled on enough in this video. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate you playing along. If you're interested in hearing what I have to say about Turning Pro, and then after that, Do the Work, well then what you need to do is subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then you'll get the email when I post the next video. So anyway, that's the one for this one, and appreciate you playing along, appreciate you watching, and hope you see me on another video.